Good evening, everyone. Tonight, we're sitting at a long wooden table where the candles have already learned to be patient, where 8 plates shine in a polite row, and where a clock on the wall pretends not to notice that no one has hung their coats. So, before you get too comfortable, take a moment to like this video and subscribe, but only if you truly enjoy what I do here. And in the comments, tell me where you're listening from and what time it is I like seeing our little constellation of night owls. Now, turn off the lights, maybe let a fan hum in the background, and let's begin tonight's journey together. I turned 78 this morning. I set the table last night to give my future self courage, 8 chairs, my mother's plates, the linen napkins that only come out on days that beg for witnesses. I folded the blue ones the way my sister Lillian taught me tucked corners. A little flourish, like a party trick you can do with cloth. The roast sat in its marinade like optimism in a bowl. A lemon cake cooled on the counter and practiced being gracious. At noon, I put the kettle on. At 1, I lined the driveway with 3 paper windsocks because my grandson loves things that flutter. At 2, I opened the good pickles because birthdays want crunch. By 3, the doorbell had remained untouched long enough to feel like a statement. I wiped the knob anyway. Hope gets to be foolish once in a while. At 3:12, my phone chimed with a sound that has become less like a bell and more like weather. Tessa, the daughter-in-law with the perfect bangs and the phrases that always sound like she's taking minutes, posted a photo. A soft bundle of newborn and 2 adults who look like they designed sunset. Close family only, the caption read, followed by an emoji that could be read as tender or triumphant depending on your blood pressure. I stood in my kitchen with my good napkins folded like ships and read the words twice close family only. Joke 1 wandered through my chest in house slippers. Apparently, I am a scenic overlook, not a stop. Academic phrase of the day: social gatekeeping. The public argument that access to milestones can be restricted by whoever controls the story. Shrinking family until only certain optics fit through the door. It's not distance, it's design. I am not new to being cropped out. It started small group texts I learned about later. Holiday plans simplified to keep things calm for the baby. Phone calls where I was praised for understanding when all I'd done was wait. My son Grant speaks in corporate paragraphs now. He used to speak in Lego instructions. Mom, logistics, he says, as if love were freight. Tessa signs her texts XT, which is affectionate shorthand for I will be editing this narrative. I made tea the way you do when water is the only thing that doesn't lie. The house listened. Houses do that when you fed them years of Sundays. I placed 1 plate of roast and 1 slice of cake on my little counter and ate with excellent posture because my mother taught me not to slouch in front of joy, even if joy is eating by itself. Elder wisdom reflection. When people make you small in rooms you built, don't beg for a bigger chair. Build a new room and invite your whole self. No is a fence. Your life is the garden. At 4:03, a robin thumped the window lightly, as if to check on me. I told it we were fine and turned the radio to something that hummed. I put plastic wrap over the pickles and wrote the date in tidy numbers. Practicality, I have learned, is a profound kind of prayer. Quick, quirky sidebar: the first birthday candles date back to ancient Greece. People offered honey cakes to Artemis with candles to mimic the moon's glow. Somewhere between the moon and my table sits a lemon cake with frosting. I attempted twice. The first batch tasted like apologies. The second learned confidence. Both, however, were ready for company. My daughter Nora called from 2 time zones away at 4:21. Happy birthday, Mom, she said, meaning it, but also bracing. She had seen the post everyone had. I pictured her in her small kitchen with the bright tiles, leaning on the counter, choosing her verbs like gentle needles. "How are you?" she asked. "I'm treating myself like a guest," I said. "I'm being early for my own party." She knew what that meant. We talked about her basil plant, dramatic, her neighbor's dog, bilingual, the book she intends to finish, stubborn. We pretended the word close didn't echo across the linoleum. A funny thing about the silence, it didn't feel like an accident. It felt curated. When Tessa first started dating my son, she brought me peonies and phrases, legacy, boundaries, modern traditions. I brought her tea and common sense. Over the years, she began speaking for Grant, then for the calendar, then for the baby who wasn't here yet. "It'll just be us," she'd say. And us became a smaller and smaller pronoun until it didn't include the woman who stitched Grant's Cub Scout patches onto a sash with hands that had already done night shifts. Joke 2 held a candle if closeness were a measuring cup. I would still pass. At 500, I scooped the candles off the table and set them on the stove, where they looked like little sentries guarding a recipe I hadn't decided on yet. I wrote a short note that began as a list and turned into a promise. I will not fight to be near a child by stepping on her mother's shadow. I will not audition for family. I will love the baby without needing credit. I will do something kind for a stranger before bed. Then I did the only practical thing left. I called Mr. Caldwell, who has been my attorney since 1989 and keeps his pens in a tidy jar as if ink is a pet. I left a message, Eloise, here. I would like to review my will and the education fund we discussed. First thing tomorrow, if you can bear me. I am 78. I would like my documents to say that in bold. I hung up and exhaled. Not dramatic, definite. I set aside a portion of the roast and the cake for my neighbor Ida, whose knees argue and whose laugh steam cleans a room. I knocked. She opened in slippers that remember the alphabet. I made too much. I lied. I made too much. She lied back, holding up a pot of greens that had been cooking since noon. We traded like spies. As dusk practiced, I took a walk. The air smelled like tomato vines and distant barbecue. I passed the park where Grant learned to pump his swing by himself and the bench where I once told Nora that heartbreak was just gravity with better lighting. I didn't want to cry. I wanted to be exact. I wanted to make a plan that did not require anyone else's calendar. At home. I washed the good plates without resentment. Always wash the good plates. Joy should never end sticky. I stacked the napkins to iron tomorrow, because fabric deserves second chances. I opened my laptop, the one with the tiny chip on the E that reminds me of imperfection's charm, and wrote an email to myself titled, "The Baby's Trust." It went like this: fund to be held until age 18 and 25. Distributions only for education. Health and first housing deposit. No parental reimbursements. A letter to accompany the documents warm. Honest, not weaponized. A clause for a small annual donation to the city library's early reading program. In the baby's name. So her life makes other lives bigger from the start. I will tell Mr. Caldwell tomorrow that legacy is not a table you gatekeep. It's a bench in a public park with good shade. Joke 3 yawned. If I'd known I would be celebrating alone, I might have made a single-serve cake. But then who would Ida have lied to before bed? I stood by the hall mirror and regarded a woman with kind eyes and a practicality that has paid rent and heat and 3 college applications. You are not an antique, I told her. You are current, like a river. I packed a small gift bag anyway, a knit blanket I've been working on for months. Pale yellow like the warm spot on a floor where sunlight rests. I tucked in a card addressed to the baby in future tense. I wrote, "When you are ready to choose your own doors, may there be many." I turned off the lamp. The house did its wooden exhale. Somewhere across town, a caption gathered hearts. Here, I gathered my own. Tomorrow would be paperwork and a different definition of close. Tonight. The candles went back into their paper sleeves, the good silver into its pouch, and my 78-year-old heart into a rhythm it's used for birth, graduation, mourning, and 1,000 small Thursdays. There was, after all, cake for breakfast, and a bench I could endow, and a child whose life I could enlarge without shrinking anyone, and a word I could reclaim family as wide as a park, as calm as a library, as stubborn as a woman who learned to measure love by what she gives away, not by who posts the photo. Morning opens like a careful drawer. I iron last night's blue napkins until the creases look like decisions and set them in their stack, warm as bread. The kettle clears its throat. I call Mr. Caldwell right at 9, and his assistant, who has the voice of a well-swept hallway, offers me 11 o'clock. "Bring any prior documents," she says. I slide my old will into a folder with the gravity of a season changing and sit for a moment at the end of the table where the candles learned patience. I don't cry. I inventory. Academic phrase of the day, narrative, control the public argument that whoever frames the story decides who counts, when events matter, and which words get to be holy. Once I name it, the last decade reorganizes itself like a file cabinet that's been waiting for labels. It didn't begin with a post. It was the slow, polite kind. Grant's birthday dinner moved from my house to somewhere central, which turned out to be their side of town with chairs that tilted back too far and menus where water had an adjective. "You don't need to cook, Mom," he'd say, as if I'd proposed moving a piano with my teeth. Tessa would add, "Easier for the baby someday." Before the baby existed, like she was laying track for a train she knew would come. Baby showers. Then, modern, low-key, just girls, which meant friends with tall glasses and short sleeves, and a ribbon that recorded gifts like a court reporter. I sent a quilt in pale squares, stitched with the same patient hand that patched Grant's knees and Nora's sleeves for years. The thank you note said so thoughtful in a font that felt like a sigh. My blanket was folded behind a decorative cactus for the photo. Joke 1 raises its hand somewhere. There's a cactus that has met more cameras than I have. Holidays were simplified. The turkey, once mined by tradition and roasting pan, became a catering tray that arrived like a celebrity, sweating under foil, my sweet potatoes, brown sugar. Pecans were too heavy after brunch. Brunch, ah yes, the emerging sacrament. I began to arrive with a jar of cranberry relish and leave with the jar empty of affection. People mean well while they are reassigning you. It makes it harder to argue without feeling like you've refused peace. Nora would look at me across the table like a translation service. "Are you okay?" her eyes asked. "I know what this is," mine answered, "but we didn't name it. And naming is the start of remedy." I blame distance, work, the era. It was design, not drift. I can admit that now without setting myself on fire. The registry for the baby was the first document that truly understood its job, a list of needs that made me feel like an animal in a museum. "No handmade items," it said, and nursery palette neutral. And support our brand, my son, who once wrote a crooked thank you note with a jelly stain on it and meant every word. Now repeated phrases he didn't invent. "We want things streamlined," he said on the phone. As if affection had packaging waste. Elder wisdom reflection when your place at the table shrinks to the size of a gift card. Stop tugging at the edges, step back and build another table. With benches. Some dinners are meant to be picnics. I started keeping a notebook the year I turned 76. Not a grievance book, a pattern book, like quilters keep. Dates, weather, words people use like tools, logistics, simplify, rest for you, just us. After a while, I could predict the sentence before it arrived. There's a kind of mercy in knowing the script. It frees you to write a different play. Quick, quirky sidebar, the word brunch didn't exist in print until 1895, when a British writer suggested a late morning meal for Saturday night carousers. America grabbed it by the mimosa and never let go. It has since become a ritual that can cover many sins, chief among them. Cancellations disguised as sophistication. I bear brunch no malice. I just refuse to live beneath its timestamp. Nora called from her bright-tiled kitchen often, careful as a person carrying soup across a crowded room. She would report from the edges. Tessa says they're keeping it small. Grant's worried about overstimulating the baby. They hired a photographer. So, it's a production day. I'd ask for times and addresses like we were still living in the era of street maps. Not euphemism. Sometimes I'd get them. Often I'd get, "We'll circle back," which is calendaring for no. I adjusted. I began volunteering 2 afternoons a week at Cedar Glen, the nursing home down the hill, in the library that smells like old paper and new sanitizer. I read aloud to Mrs. Whitaker, who prefers mysteries, and to Mr. Shu, who pretends he doesn't but always asks who did it halfway through. I learned the names of the CNAs who lift more than weight and the names of visitors who come like clock and those who never come at all. When families show, they bring balloons and the fear of saying the wrong thing. They leave relieved that love still knows their faces. The staff taught me a phrase that lives in my palm now: family of origin and family of choice. Both are real. Only one is guaranteed to show up at 2 on a Tuesday with lemon cookies. In that library, I also learned the shape of legacy that interests me. It is not the peonies Tessa favors or the photo walls that behave like real estate brochures. Legacy is the book cart with the squeaky wheel that still makes its rounds. Legacy is the scholarship envelope that arrives on a Tuesday for a nursing student whose rent assumes a universe with more mercy than it currently has. Legacy is a bench with shade in a park by a bus stop, so a tired mother can feed a baby without remembering who owns the sidewalk. Before I leave for Mr. Caldwell's, I check my hallway mirror and adjust my scarf. It's the blue one Lillian bought me at a church bazaar 20 years ago. The one with the tiny flaw near the hem that we kept on purpose because imperfection makes things legible to the living. I tuck the knit blanket into the gift bag, pale yellow. Simple as a sunrise, and slide the folder of documents into my tote. The house approves. Its wooden breath steady. Mr. Caldwell greets me at 11 with his pen jar and a legal pad that looks like it knows how to listen. We spread my current will on the desk. I want to simplify, I say, but not in the way Tessa says that word. He smiles. A quiet thing. I outline what I wrote last night, a trust for the baby, call her Emma in the documents, even if the name changes. Because the intention matters with distributions only she can trigger at 18 and 25, funds for education and health. With a clause for first housing deposit, no parental reimbursements, a letter from me filed with the trust. Gentle and exact. Describing my love and my intention not to interfere in her childhood while ensuring her adulthood has a bench to sit on. He writes without interrupting. "And my son?" he asks. I look at the pen jar, at my own careful hands. He will receive a letter in a small amount that says, "I considered him." But I did not deputize him. My daughter will receive the same. I am done trying to persuade them in rooms they rented to look important in. Mr. Caldwell nods. "We can attach a memorandum of intent," he says. "In your voice." I breathe out. "Please attach my voice." We add one more clause that feels like air in my lungs, an annual gift in Emma's name, to the library's early reading program and a small discretionary fund for Cedar Glen's CNA Appreciation Week, because they lift more than weight, I explain. He writes it exactly. On the way home, I stop at the library. I check out a book of lullabies in 3 languages, because babies belong to all the cadences. and a slim volume on endowments written by someone who loves footnotes. The librarian stamps the cards with that soft talk that has become a kind of worship to me. I buy 3 used paperbacks from the sale shelf and tuck a $10 bill in each with a note. For whoever needs a surprise today, from someone else's grandma. Back at the house, I fold the blue napkins one more time, not because they need it, but because repetition calms the room, and I call Nora. I changed some papers today. I tell her I made them more honest. She knows what that costs and what it buys. Proud of you, she says. And then, after a breath, can I fly in next month? Not for an event, for soup. I sit down suddenly, like soup is news. Yes, I say. And the house tilts toward joy the way a plant tilts toward a window. Joke 2 wanders through, I should warn Nora that my soup has become opinionated with age. It prefers to be listened to. Evening drifts in with slow shoes. I take the gift bag from the chair and place it by the door. Tomorrow, I will ask to meet the baby. I will accept whatever answer comes. Yes. No. A doorway. A porch, but I will go with a blanket and a trust that took the shape of love without begging at anyone's gate. I have built my bench. I can wait on it without apologizing. Before bed, I write a small sentence on a clean index card and slide it behind the kitchen magnet. You are not the caption they write. You are the whole photo album. The kettle cools. The candles thank me for last night and for today's clarity. The house does its wooden exhale. I sleep with my scarf draped over the chair like a flag that finally learned which country it belongs to. I do not sleep the way pillows suggest. I drift in and out surface. Breathe. Inventory. Until dawn sets a soft thumbprint on the curtains and the house decides it is morning. I make tea in the slow way, letting the leaves think about hot water, while the kettle talks. I lay the folder on the table, new draft instructions from Mr. Caldwell. My notes for the trust letter. The pale yellow blanket folded like a sunrise with corners that behave. I take out the small box where I keep photographs that did not have the courage to become frames. There's Grant at 4, solemn about a paper crown. Nora at 9, missing a tooth and proud about it. Lillian pretending a thrift store scarf is Paris. I lay 3 on the table like guests who never talk over each other. Then I add the screenshot of yesterday's caption, close family only, and breathe until the words lose their pitch. Academic phrase of the day, can keeping the public argument that in most families, someone often, a woman tends the ties, remembers birthdays, plans, holidays, keeps recipes and numbers and peace. When a new narrator arrives and grabs the microphone, the kinkeeper can be retired without a cake. Naming it helps me set my wrists. I am still what I am, even if the title was unceremoniously reassigned. I write the trust letter in pencil first, then in ink, because words deserve both rehearsal and commitment. Dear small person, I am your grandmother. I will not ask your mother's permission to love you because love is not a hallway pass. I am building you a bench for later books. School, teeth, and glasses. The first rent check you sign with hands that shake in a good way. Your parents will not be able to spend this on your behalf. Not because I do not trust them to love you, but because I trust you to become yourself. When you read this, I hope you have a favorite library and a recipe that forgives. Love from the long ago, E. I slide the page into a second envelope marked for Emma. When she is ready, and tuck it behind Mr. Caldwell's papers like a note under a pie. Elder wisdom reflection. When you feel small in someone else's living room, make the room you carry inside you larger tea that tastes like a plan. Papers that hum with future. A sentence you can stand on when the carpet gets ideas. At 9, I send a text to Grant and Tessa together so no one can rearrange my message in transit. I have a blanket for the baby. I would love to stop by for 10 minutes today or tomorrow. Porch is fine. I will bring my own sanitizer and my good manners. The dots appear, disappear, think about themselves. Finally. Grant. Today is complicated. Then Tessa. We're keeping things small for recovery. Close family only right now. Thank you for understanding. The phrase arrives with a curtsy that doesn't reach the knees. Joke 1 keeps its voice low. I offer a porch. Not a parade, I murmur to the kettle. The kettle agrees. It has always preferred porches. I give them an hour to be wiser. I take a short walk. The park bench by the bus stop is bare this early, a kind of invitation. I sit and think about shade trees that were planted by people who never sat under them. I think about benches with little brass plaques that say "in memory of." And I consider a plaque that might someday say, "For all the babies of this corner who needed 10 minutes of public goodness." Quick, quirky sidebar newborns see best at about 8 to 12 inches the distance from chest to face when held, which is its own design sermon. They prefer high contrast. Your nose becomes architecture, your eyebrows, a skyline. Babies are born expecting closeness. The word close was never meant to mean a club. Back home, I take out a card I've saved for years, the kind with a painted robin and a stripe of sky too blue to argue with. I write to Tessa, not in the future tense, not in the past. But here you are doing something enormous. Recovery is a real word if a porch visit when the baby sleeps feels like oxygen. Say so. If not, I will leave you soup on the step and try again next Sunday. Either way, I'm not leaving. I do not add the sentence sitting behind my teeth. You keep using close like I do not understand it. I understand it down to the bones. At 11:14, another text. Tomorrow. 5 minutes. Porch. Masked. No photos. It reads like a policy memo. But I receive it like a weather report that includes sun. I reply, "Thank you. I'll be there," with blanket and inside voice. Joke 2 adds, silently, and my ability to leave when I say I will. The rest of the day becomes gentle choreography. I wash my hands with lavender because ritual makes the room behave. I pack the blanket in tissue paper and slide in a small card that only says welcome, in handwriting that has paid bills and consoled knees. I put the trust folder in my tote behind a cardboard sleeve so it doesn't perform. The folder will not leave the tote tomorrow. It is for Mr. Caldwell and for a later visit, when words can stretch their legs without frightening new parents. But I need it near me, like a spine. I call Nora and tell her the plan. Porch is a win, she says. 5 minutes can be faithful. We decide she will be on the phone in my earbud during the walk. Silent unless I need a lighthouse. She knows how to be a lighthouse. It's a family skill that didn't get reassigned. Afternoon slides by respectfully. I visit Cedar Glen for my library shift. Mrs. Whitaker wants to know whether the butler did it. I inform her that the author respects us too much for that. Mr. Hisu complains about the detective's hat. I tell him the hat is the only way we recognize the detective. They both accept cookies like a sacrament and send me off with, "Tell the baby we like her already." I promise to tell the air near the baby, which is close enough for now. On my way home, I stop at the post office to buy stamps with birds on them, because sometimes literal helps. I also buy a sheet of thank you stamps, imagining envelopes to a librarian, a CNA, and perhaps to a future teacher who will teach Emma how to make excellent margins. Evening hums. I steam the scarf Lillian bought me. Blue carries me kindly through rooms that want me edited. I iron the tissue paper as well absurd, satisfying so the blanket will slide into its page without crunching. I write a 6-item list on a small card titled, "Tomorrow, 10 minutes 1. Arrive on time. 2. Mask on, smile anyway. 3. Compliment Tessa's steadiness. Say recovery like respect. 4. Hold baby only if offered. Do not reach. 5. Leave early. 6. Text thank you from the sidewalk. The phone rings at 8. It's Grant. His voice is the one he uses for complex meetings with good coffee. Mom. Thanks for being flexible, he begins, as if we negotiated a conference room. We're trying to keep the circle tight to avoid germs. I answer with calm. Not court. I'm glad to be outside the circle if that is the safest choice, I say. And glad to be on the porch if that is the kindest. He exhales. Tessa's mom is staying with us for a few weeks, he adds, too quickly. An unintentional footnote. Of course, I say, and keep my tone as neutral as a good towel. The circle appears to have sections. I do not draw a diagram, I adjust my breathing. He asks about Nora. I say she's well and opinionated about Soup's true on both counts. He tells me the baby's name, and it is not Emma. I repeat the new name twice so my mouth can memorize it. The trust can hold any name. Intention is flexible. We hang up politely. I sit at the table and practice saying the baby's name until my ribs know it. I add one line to the trust letter in pencil. If you have changed names by the time you read this, I will have learned them all and love them equally. Quick, quirky sidebar: legal paper is longer than letter paper by exactly 3 inches 14 versus 11. A small arrogance left over from clerks who liked room for flourishes. I am a letter-size woman. My flourishes live in cakes and quilts, not margins. The trust will be typed on letter and filed on legal. I can live with that contradiction. Joke 3 pads through the kitchen. Tomorrow I will bring hand sanitizer and my best impression of a whisper. The Robin will handle advertising. Before bed, I walk through the house and straighten frames as if I'm aligning vertebrae. I touch my mother's plate and my father's pencil cup. I thank the kettle for keeping the room company. I put the tote by the door, the gift bag atop it, the scarf on the hook, the list in my pocket. Then I write my 3 lines. Kin keeping can be done quietly. It is still keeping. Close is a design choice. I remain a proximity of love. A porch counts, a bench counts, a baby's 8 inches of vision count. We will meet in that interval. I sleep like a person who has an address for morning. The fan writes its cursive above me. The watch ticks without swagger. Somewhere a caption will try on its angles. Here, Grace has a schedule: 10 minutes, a blanket, a porch, a grandmother's voice kept steady on purpose. Tomorrow, we will attempt the most radical thing to show up small, and to let small be holy enough. Morning arrives like a hand smoothing the sheet. I dress in the blue scarf Lillian chose and the sensible shoes that apologize to no staircase. I tuck the pale yellow blanket into tissue that behaves and slip the tiny welcome card under its edge. The tote with Mr. Caldwell's drafts stays by the chair near enough to feel like a spine. Far enough not to become theater. I read my 6-item porch list once more, the way nurses read labels before medicine on time. Mask on. Compliment steadiness. Receive only if offered. Leave early. Text thanks. Academic phrase of the day. Interaction ritual chains. The public argument that small, repeated moments are hello. A shared glance. A handoff of a gift knit people into a fabric stronger than any single speech. Today's 5 minutes is not a speech, it's a stitch. At 10:28, I begin the slow walk. Nora in my earbud, not talking, only breathing the lighthouse. The air smells like cut grass and bread. Even the street seems to be using its inside voice. At 10:59, I'm on their block. I put on my mask, soft, blue. Layered like maturity and smooth the tissue one last time. I ring once, then step back 2 tiles, palms visible. The door opens into brightness. Tessa looks very human. which is to say undone and beautiful in a practical way, hair forgiving, eyes competent, robe that says today is a verb. Hi. Eloise, she says, and I can hear the effort in my name. Grant hovers 2 steps behind with the look of a man double booking his heart. Between them is a small sound, the kind a new person brings with them, a squeak like a hinge discovering it was always a violin. Recovery is real, I say, simple as water. Thank you for the porch. Tessa nods once, a professional courtesy between women who know what the body charges. She does not offer the baby, she lets me look. I keep my hands clang quiet at my sides and let my eyes do the touch, 10 fingers like punctuation, cheeks like an argument for softness, mouth practicing the letter O. She's here, I say. And Tessa actually smiles. She is, she answers, a little surprised to like the sentence. Elder wisdom reflection, praise the thing that's true in front of you, not the photograph you wish existed. Reality, well named, is a better gift than longing with a bow. I hold up the bag. This is a blanket, I narrate, as if to a court reporter. Pale yellow, washable, useful. Tessa reaches out, not to block, but to receive. Thank you, she says. And the U lands with less choreography than usual. We're rotating blankets like diplomats, Grant adds. Relieved to have a noun, joke one clears its throat behind my mask. This one is neutral, I say. It votes for naps. We talk in pebbles. How are you sleeping? We answer like weather reports scattered. Local improvement by dawn. How is feeding? A learning curve shaped like a question mark. Any needs everything, Tessa says, then corrects herself. Nothing we can't Google at 3 a.m. I compliment the way she holds her shoulder like a shelf. I say steady twice on purpose. Grant tells me the baby's full name. I say it back, 3 times, softer each time. So my ribs remember. My quick, quirky sidebar newborns prefer faces with eyebrows because contrast helps brains locate person. That's why a humble unibrow can be an early celebrity. I silently thank mine for not giving up in the 70s. At 3 minutes, Tessa glances toward the living room like a person checking a pot. At 4, my own list taps my pocket. I'll go, I say, stepping back a tile, giving the moment an exit ramp. I'll text from the sidewalk. I almost add someday I can hold her. I choose not to push any door that didn't invite me. Thank you for coming, Tessa says. And though the phrase is formal, the tone is domestic. Grant squeezes the air once, an almost hug. Joke 2 tilts its hat to the clock. I'm early for leaving. I whisper to Nora in my ear, and she breathes her smile. On the sidewalk, I text, thank you for 5 minutes. Porch visit was perfect. Recover well. I am here for boring errands. 3 dots appear. Then a small heart. Then thank you. The punctuation of truce. I walk the long way home, past the bench I've been mentally engraving. The neighborhood feels less like a map and more like a set of tools, each corner a wrench, each tree a screwdriver, each bus stop a quiet vice that holds life steady while you work. At Cedar Glen later, Mrs. Whitaker will ask if the butler did it. I will say, no, the alibi did, and we'll both feel clever, for now. I carry my empty bag like proof that giving doesn't require a receipt. Back in my kitchen, I pour tea with hands that remember births and bake sales. I take out Mr. Caldwell's drafts and the pencil letter for Emma, when she's ready, and copy it in ink, this time with the name that actually exists. I add a line about today I met you on a porch through a mask and the air felt like a prayer. The envelope slips into my tote with a good hush of paper doing its job. At noon, Mr. Caldwell calls to confirm language. We finalize the clause's distributions at 18 and 25 on her signature. Education and health by definition. Not persuasion. No parental reimbursements. Annual library gift in her name. Cedar Glen CNA week. A memorandum in my voice. Politely fierce. He asks if I want to include a condition about continued contact. I sit with it, then say, no conditions for love, only scaffolding for adulthood. He writes it down, and I can hear his pen behave. The afternoon expands into usefulness. I take a casserole to Ida and replace the battery in her chirping smoke detector because generosity should include ladders. Kept outdoors, the chirp migrates to my head for an hour, then relents. Joke 3 dusts the sill if angels need attention. They should take a number like everyone else. I stop by the library sale shelf and slip another 10 into a paperback today, a mystery where the detective's hat does most of the work. The librarian with the stamp nods our secret alliance. Bird stamps again, she asks. Always, I say. Wings are my current brand. The phone buzzes at 4. A photo. Unexpected the baby. A crescent of light on her cheek. The yellow blanket just visible at the edge like a sunrise with manners. No caption. Just the image. The air around my heart does a little ceremony. I do not forward it. I do not upload it. I set the phone face down and memorize it with my own pixels cornea. Memory. Prayer. Dinner is gentle roasted vegetables that never asked for an audience, and the house seems to approve of my portion sizes and my restraint with metaphor. I write a thank you card to the midwife, whose name I don't know, addressed only to labor and delivery staff, and a separate one to mail carrier with calves of glory, because kindness must jump the curb sometimes to stay interesting. Later, Nora calls. Lighthouse report. She jokes. Did we guide the ship docked for 5 minutes? I say. No photos, no speeches, one blanket. There was a heart emoji. Nora applauds with her mouth. That counts in maritime law, she says. And we laugh because bureaucratic humor is the family sport. Elder wisdom. Second serving when your hope is tender. Feed it routine. Sweep. Stamp. Stir. Let paperwork be comfort food. There's a reason casseroles were invented by people with long histories. Before bed, I put the tote by the door for tomorrow's signing, tuck the thank you stamps in my wallet, and slide the porch list back into the drawer like a recipe we'll use again. I add one line to my notebook. A 5-minute stitch can hold a quilt if you do it daily. Under it, I add 3 smaller lines because habits love companions. The bench in my mind now has a plaque for whoever needs shade. Photos can be kept like birds admired, not netted. I can leave early and still be present. The fan writes its cursive. The watch keeps time without swagger, across town. A caption may be trying on its angles again. Here, my blue scarf hangs like a flag in calm weather. Tomorrow, Mr. Caldwell's pen will become a lever. Tonight, my house, this faithful box of oxygen and memory, rests with me, and we practice the quietest ritual chain of all lights off, breath even. Promise kept. Mr. Caldwell's office smells like lemon oil and paper that knows its job. He greets me with the same jar of fountain pens and the same steady eyebrows that have shepherded my life through mortgages. Music recitals, and one tiny fender bender in 1997. Today the table holds my drafts, now wearing grown-up clothes. We'll read aloud, he says. So the words can prove their furniture, not props. I like that. Words deserve to hold weight. Academic phrase of the day, intergenerational equity. The public argument that today's adults owe tomorrow's adults a fair slice of resources and options. Not just heirlooms and stories. That's the spine under this whole errand, a bench in the park of later. We begin with the trust. Distributions at 18 and 25 on her own signature. Education and health defined plainly. A first lease deposit clause that reads like a small door opening. No parental reimbursements. He reads, not unkindly, as if he's narrating a guardrail. Trustee, a neutral bank with a phone number that answers. Successor trustee, Nora. Only if she says yes when asked privately, and only if life is calm enough for it. Mr. Caldwell nods. You are keeping the money from entanglements, he says. That's generosity with elbows. Joke 1 straightens its tie. I prefer my generosity to keep its hands where I can see them, I say. He almost laughs. Lawyers have delicate humor. We add the library gift clause and Cedar Glen's CNA week, because they lift more than weight, he repeats, amused that law can hold a sentence like that. Then the memorandum of intent, my voice, politely fierce, about why the baby's adulthood should not be collateral in anyone's social theater. He reads it back to me, and I feel my shoulders lower the way a room lowers its lighting when dinner arrives. Elder wisdom reflection. When you can't control the door someone else guards. Install a window that opens from your side. You'll breathe better, and the room won't belong to their key. We sign. The notary produces a seal that embosses an honest crinkle into the paper. The sound, thought, and imprint lands like a gavel that prefers casseroles. Caldwell's assistant witnesses with the composure of a woman who has seen whole continents rerouted through signatures. Congratulations, Mr. Caldwell says, and it doesn't feel like a victory lap so much as a map finally correctly labeled. Quick, quirky sidebar, the gum on old envelopes was often made from plant resins and potato starch. That's why your grandmother's letters tasted faintly of pantry. Modern self-seal strips use acrylics. No more potato aftertaste. Fewer stamp-licking romances. I still miss the faint culinary promise of the mail. On the way home, I stop at the post office and buy more bird stamps than any person needs. The clerk says. Planning a migration, I say. A very local one. I slide 2 stamped thank yous into the slot, one to labor and delivery staff, the other to legal aid library, donations, because paper should travel toward its own kind. At noon, lunch is the ceremony of the ordinary soup reheated with a patient spoon. An apple that votes for afternoon. My phone buzzes a text from Grant with a photo baby sleeping, the pale yellow blanket like a quiet sunrise at the frame's edge. She settled. He writes, thanks. 2 words, no emojis. I send a heart and nothing else. The urge to forward the picture is loud and then gets tired. I let it nap. Nora calls from her tiled kitchen. How's the liver, she asks. Shorthand for law with teeth. Installed, I answer. Elegant, boring. We both agree, boring is a kind of grace. She asks about being trustee. I tell her, no pressure, just a future with a checklist. Ask me again in a month, she says. I want to finish loving my summer before I love your paperwork. She has my humor, softened at the edges. Joke 2 leans in. The paperwork will wait. It has a strong back. Afternoon is Cedar Glen. The library cart's squeaky wheel is, as always, faithful and dramatic. Mrs. Whitaker demands to know if the detective ever takes off his hat, only to sleep, I say. Mr. Shu pretends to scowl, then pockets the shortbread I brought for staff morale. I drop by the nurse station and leave 10 thank you stamps with a note for birthday cards. Permission slips, and letters that should go out on time. A CNA named JL laughs. We text, she says, but puts the stamps in her pocket anyway like a relic. At 3, I walk the long block that has become my thinking path. I rehearse the baby's name until the syllables become furniture in my mouth. I practice future introductions. I'm Eloise's grandmother and soup supplier. I practice refusals I may need later, no. I cannot attend a brunch where the RSVP requires my ego. It is easier to be kind to future strangers when you've practiced being strong with your own ghost. When I get home, there is mail. One envelope with a fancy return address. I've come to recognize the club. A glossy Legacy Circle invitation with tiered donations named after trees they removed to pave the parking. The little RSVP card says, Close Family Reception. The word close has become a kind of insect that keeps trying to land on my cake. I escort it to the polite trash and wash my hands, because boundaries feel better when your palms are clean. I sit at my table and write 3 notes to Mr. Caldwell's assistant for her calm. To the mail carrier, your calves are community infrastructure. To the librarian with the stamp, your thought is church to me. Then I address one to the Parks Department. I would like to fund a bench with shade near the number 7 bus stop. Plaque to read for whoever needs 10 minutes of public goodness. I enclose a check that represents half a year of small economies and 1 morning of law. The phone vibrates at 5. Tessa, I answer with the voice you use when you don't want to scare a bird. The blanket is perfect, she says, surprising herself with the sincerity. It doesn't overwhelm the bassinet. A compliment in Tessa is like a comet. You note the date. I'm glad, I say. She hesitates. My mother will stay through next week, she adds. The way people add sandbags before rain. Of course, I answer. If you want soup dropped on the step, text soup and a time. I'll assume no conversation required. She laughs once, new and small. You have a system for everything, don't you? It keeps me from weeping in public, I say. We let the call end on that cousin of humor that forgives both of us for being people. Evening. I volunteer at the church food pantry because I promised myself one kindness beyond my address. I shelve beans. I learn a new name for a familiar hunger. I trade recipes for cheap nutrition like baseball cards. A young father thanks me for not asking questions. We're a no-quiz zone, I tell him, and mean it down to my socks. Back home, I find a message from Caldwell PDFs for my records. And one gentle question: do I want to add a clause about a small annual birthday note sent to the baby care of her school when she starts? I grin at the screen like a teenager. Yes, I reply. A note with a bookplate each year. From your elsewhere grandma, routed through whichever school librarian is currently underfunded and overkind. I make tea. The house, satisfied, exhales its timber sigh. I take the shoebox of photos and add one new thing, a slip of paper with today's date and 4 words, bench funded, trust signed. I tuck it between Grant's paper crown and Nora's missing tooth pride like a chapter heading nobody else has to approve. Quick, quirky sidebar second serving witnesses for wills must be disinterested in most states, meaning they inherit nothing, so their signatures can't be accused of daydreaming about couches. It is a relief to watch good law distrust charm. Before bed, I step onto the porch. The air smells like the kind of summer that forgives people for forgetting your birthday once and insists they not do it again. I look up at a sky smug with stars and decide not to be mad at them for shining on everybody equally. Then I write my 3 lines. Intergenerational equity tastes like library dust and fresh benches. I cannot pry open a door labeled close. I can oil the hinges of one labeled later. A good signature is a quiet thunderclap. Joke 3 puts on slippers. Tomorrow I'll try to make a single-serve lemon cake, I tell the night. And if it fails, I'll make 2 and lie to the neighbors. The maple pretends not to laugh. Trees have reputations. The fan writes its cursive. The watch keeps time without swagger. Somewhere. A gala list is alphabetizing itself. Here. My list is shorter and sturdier stamps. Soup, benches, baby. The truss sleeps on the sideboard in a tidy folder. Paper purring faintly like a cat that knows where the warm spot is. I turn out the light. The house this roomy witness settles its boards and agrees with me tomorrow we keep the schedule of a life that does not audition. The day after, signatures always feels like a room where someone finished a piano piece and the last note is still hanging soft. Official. Shaped like air. I carry that note with me to the library, where the morning light comes in like a patron who knows when to whisper. The reference desk wears its little bell-like jewelry. The card creaks with ambition. I tell the librarian I'm collecting words the way some people collect teaspoons. For what subject, she asks. Family weather, I say, and she smiles without requesting a Dewey Decimal number. She points me to a shelf that smells like old paper being brave. Academic phrase of the day, triangulation. The public argument that in a conflict, one person pulls in a third to twist the tension, outsource blame, or control the narrative. The triangle gets attention while the line that needs mending is ignored. Reading it, I can finally diagram the phone calls where Grant was translated through Tessa. And I was transformed into a concern instead of a name. I copy the definition on an index card and add my own sentence. Refuse the third corner. That will be a rule for my bench. 2-3 can be a choir, but 2 must be able to talk without someone conducting. I check out a slim book on aging and agency, a clinical guide with surprising tenderness, and a thinner one with a loud title about toxic in-laws, which turns out to be mostly lists. Lists are fine. My life prefers verbs. I sit at the window and copy in pencil the phrases that feel like rungs on a ladder, assertional clarity. Narrative repair. Support without enablement. I draw a small star beside proximity of care, the form of love measured not in likes, but in miles walked with soup. Joke 1 arrives wearing sensible shoes. I consider getting a tiny gold charm shaped like an index card to wear on a necklace. My good jewelry is filing. At noon, I walk down the hill to Cedar Glen. The lobby is busy in the good way. Deliveries and wheelchairs and laughter sound doing errands. In the library, I give Mrs. Whitaker a mystery with a detective who actually shares clues. And she looks at me like I've gifted her a holiday. Mr. Shu tells me he figured out last week's twist. I tell him he did not. But I admire his confidence. We spend an hour reading and arguing amiably about hats. Between chapters, I ask the head nurse if there's a small thing the CNA team needs that no one ever funds. She does a quick glance, left-right, the way people do before honesty. Non-skid socks, she says. We go through them like patients. She shows me the big box with too few pairs left and says procurement is a month behind. I make a note on an index card, socks now, plaque later. Intergenerational equity can have toes. Quick, quirky sidebar, hospital non-skid socks use a flocking of PVC dots cured onto the sole. They're safer if you turn them inside out to wash. And they last longer when you hang dry them. I write this on a sticky and put it in my wallet like a grandmother's spell. On the way home, I stop at the dollar store for a test run. 10 pairs fit in my tote like good decisions fit in calendar snug. Satisfying. I leave them at Cedar Glen's nurse station with a note for immediate calm feet. Jael lifts a pair like a tiny flag. Bless your organized heart, she says. I tell her the organized part is new. The heart is ancestral. Back in my kitchen, I spread my library spoils on the table and make tea that tastes like margins. I begin drafting what I am suddenly and immodestly calling the Bench Project, a one-page mission that fits in the pocket of any coat. Not a foundation yet, just an intent with elbows. We provide tiny dignities quickly. I write benches, socks, stamps, shade, bread, books. We keep receipts without needing applause. I underline quickly, as if speed were a sacrament in a slow town. Elder wisdom reflection. When big repair feels out of reach. Fix the handles on doors, on pride, on kettles. People can come and go more humanely when the grip doesn't slip. I call Parks and speak to a coordinator named Ray, who sounds like a person who secretly has a garden. He confirms the bench donation is moving along. He asks about the plaque text, and I repeat it for whoever needs 10 minutes of public goodness. He laughs softly. We could use that on our break room, he says. We settle on a location near the number 7 bus stop, but slightly shaded by the elm that refuses drama. Ray tells me the bench will take 8 weeks. I tell him my patience has 8 weeks of snacks. At 3, Grant calls. The baby cried for 3 hours last night. The household barely survived. He sounds softer from sleeplessness, more like Lego-era Grant. Any tricks, he asks. Choosing a word that presumes wisdom hides in pantry items. I give him the classics dryer hum, car ride, warm bath, the football hold, the pushchair promenade in a hallway like a runway for exhaustion. Also, I say, babies sometimes cry to make the room reboot. It works on routers and people. He exhales in a laugh that forgot it knew me. Router reboot. Got it. I do not mention that Tessa's mother is there. Not every triangle needs me connecting its corners. He asks what I'm doing. I bought socks for people who stand up all day, I say. And I wrote a paragraph about benches. He repeats benches like it is a new animal. You're starting a charity, no? I answer. A habit. He thinks about that in a silence that feels civil. That sounds like you, he says eventually, and hangs up to the sound of another small storm. I send Nora a photo of the index card that says assertional clarity, and she replies with a soup pot emoji and mom assertive, clear, ladle forward. Joke 2 races its ladle, I threaten to get that engraved. Late afternoon finds me at the library again for a public lecture advertised on the corkboard, Families and Boundaries in the Age of Posts. Led by a professor who wears corduroy the way some men wear dog hair naturally. He talks about curated closeness, the way captions discipline reality, and the small rebellions that keep kinship honest porch visits, unposted gratitude, gifts that function. I sit in the back and take notes like a freshman with a secret. Kin-keeping labor, he says, and I write redistributed. Ostentation fatigue, he says. And I write bake bread, he uses triangulation, and I draw a triangle with a red X through the top corner. The young woman next to me whispers, same, and I believe her. After. I ask the professor one question. What is the word for when someone uses safety to shrink love, he thinks. Then offers safety theater, which is a bit smug, and care washing, which is on the nose. I decide to coin my own safety as velvet rope. I am very proud of my unnecessary metaphor. I put it on an index card and then cross it out because my metaphors prefer kitchens. On the walk home, Ida is on her stoop in slippers that possess a PhD in relaxation. How's the tiny queen, she asks, meaning the baby. Sovereign, I say. The court is exhausted. Ida hands me 2 tomatoes and 1 complaint about her smoke detector, which I address with a ladder and a fresh battery. You're starting a religion, she says, when I tell her about the bench and the socks. Tiny practicalities, I say. Our sacraments are stamps. Quick, quirky sidebar, second helping. If you hum the same lullaby at exactly 60-70 beats per minute, the human resting heart rate, babies synchronize faster. Songs like Twinkle. Twinkle and Amazing Grace fit that tempo without a metronome. I text Grant this and he replies, I'll try. If not, we'll reboot the router. Dinner is tomatoes, toast, and eggs seasoned with resolve. I write down the first 3 micrograms of my non-foundation foundation. 1 socks for CNAs done weekly for a month. 2 stamps for Cedar Glen families who need to start showing up on paper. 3. A first library card kit board book. Bus tokens. And a note congratulating a new parent on joining the only club that never gatekeeps. Joke 3 checks the ledger. I add a line called petty cash for spontaneous decency and feel like a glamorous accountant. Night softens. The phone stays quiet except for a single photo of the baby's ear. Close up. A seashell of a person. No caption. I admire it like art, the museum of enough. I do not ask for more. I press my palm to the table. to the folder, to the scarf Lillian chose. I think of benches, of triangles rejected, of socks with dots like a constellation of grip. Before bed, I write 3 lines that sound like a constitution for a small republic. We will do quick mercies with receipts and no velvet ropes. We will refuse the third corner and invite the second chair. We will translate close family only into love is public infrastructure. The fan writes its cursive. The watch keeps time without swagger. My house breathes, very proud of its new religion of tiny practicalities. Tomorrow I'll call Ray about the bench plaque font readable from bus height, deliver more socks, and set aside a 20 for stamps. Because sometimes equity really is 13 envelopes that finally make it out the door. And somewhere, perhaps, a young mother rocks a tiny queen while a father hums a song at human speed and a router blinks in the corner like a lighthouse that has accepted its demotion. Peace to them. Peace to the people with sore calves. Peace to a bench that doesn't care who sits as long as it's shade. The bench paperwork moves through City Hall like a dignified turtle slow. Deliberate. Wearing the correct hat. Ray emails a mock-up of the plaque in a font you can read from bus height. I hold the printout at arm's length over the sink and grin. For whoever needs 10 minutes of public goodness, it looks like a permission slip you don't have to return. At 9:15, the family group texts the one that mostly forwards weather and coupons suddenly wakes up. Grant posts an official birth announcement with the hospital photo knit cap. Solemn eyes. 2 parents who look like they're auditioning for a soft drink commercial. We're home. Mom and baby healthy. Visitors later this month quiet. Controlled. Thanks for respecting boundaries. The words are correct. The temperature is a memo. I put my phone face down and butter my toast exactly medium brown. Percent bias prefers sugar. I give it discipline with jam. Academic phrase of the day, reactive devaluation. The public argument that we often discount an idea purely because of who offers it. My casserole heavy for recovery. My porch visit suggestion maybe next quarter. Same proposals from someone with a different last name become wisdom. Naming it helps me not take the bait. It's not my recipe. It's the bias. I spend the morning doing the religion of tiny practicalities. Socks to Cedar Glen Jail salutes me with a non-skid. Stamps to the nurse station. 2 first library card kits assembled with a board book. 2 tokens, and a note that says, "Welcome to the only club that never gatekeeps." Joke 1 flashes its membership card, dues 0, benefits literacy. The librarian stamps the pocket with her holy thought and says she started keeping a stack of my notes for parents who whisper they haven't read out loud since school. Nora calls between meetings. Weather report, she asks. Bench fair skies, family gusts. I answer. We decide she'll fly in next week for soup and to help me pick the bench's exact spot. She suggests bringing a measuring tape and a blanket. For the bench or for me, I ask. Both, she says. She's my person who always remembers both. At noon, Ray calls to ask if I'd like to add a second plaque smaller on the underside donated by E. No need to tag me. I laugh. Leave it blank, I say. Let people imagine their own donor. There's a relief in that legacy without a selfie. In the afternoon, Grant texts Sip and See next Saturday. 30-minute slots, masks. The invite includes a link to a sign-up sheet that looks like a blood drive married a wedding planner. I choose a slot that does not require me to park far or perform small talk near anyone with a clipboard. I tell Nora she suggests a pre-visit pep talk and a post-visit debrief with licorice. Joke 2 elbows the calendar if there's a clipboard. I'm writing bench, where it says employer. Elder wisdom reflection. When someone offers you structure that constricts, take the part that steadies and quietly set down the part that squeezes. People with new babies build gates to protect sleep, You build porches to protect kindness. Both can exist on the same street. I spent an hour rewriting my trust letter's opening. Not because it was wrong, but because clarity likes practice. I add 2 lines that feel like sandbags against future storms. I do not leave you money to teach anyone a lesson. I leave you money because adulthood is expensive. And I want your first apartment to smell like bread, not fear. When I read it aloud, the room does that satisfied wood exhale. Law can be a lullaby if you sing it slow. Quick, quirky sidebar babies are born with around 270 bones. Some fuse over time to end up at 206 in adulthood. Kneecaps, famously late to the party, begin as cartilage and ossify later, which is why you can carry an infant like a fragile encyclopedia soft spine. Unfiled pages and still trust their wild, innate competence to figure out the alphabet of being alive. At 3, Tessa calls. This is unusual enough that I sit down. I wanted to coordinate about Saturday. She begins, voice like a whiteboard. We're asking guests to bring no physical gifts, just their presence. I glance at the pale yellow blanket's empty spot by the chair and feel smug about my early timing. Perfect, I say. My presence is washable. There is a pause so brief it earns no interest. Also, she adds, can we keep photos minimal? I'm trying to keep her off the internet for now. I let the irony pass by like a newsletter I didn't subscribe to. You have my word, I answer. I am pro-analog baby. She clears her throat. Your bench thing, she says, making it sound like a craft project. Grant mentioned it. It's nice. Coming from Tessa, nice has upgrade status. Thank you, I say. It will save 3 people a day from crying standing up. Another beat. I think that's kind, she says. And in the word kind, I hear an unpracticed softness, reactive devaluation trips, briefly, over a new path. We hang up before we ruin the moment. I reward myself with a small errand that believes in me buying 2 more pairs of sensible shoes at the thrift, for me and for the bench pilgrimage, on the way home. Ida flags me from her stoop. Smoke detector is a gentleman now, she reports. Also, did you see the group text they used respect boundaries like a seasoning? We cackle quietly. I give her a tomato and she gives me a rumor about the parks department the bench may install early if the crew needs to meet quota before a union picnic. Bless unions and their picnics. Bless quotas when they speed kindness. At home, I lay out a calm outfit for Saturday blue scarf, soft sweater, the shoes that apologize to no staircase. I add to my card a revised mini plan arrive 10 minutes early to breathe at the elm. Bring a small note for the baby's memory box your grandmother came. She left early on purpose. No speeches. I tuck Salma's business card legal aid into my wallet. Not because I expect noise, but because talismans tell my spine to relax. Evening brings 1 more email from Mr. Caldwell, executed copies attached. Bench donation receipt forwarded from Parks. He adds a line, I adore. Your memorandum of intent reads like a decent poem. I print the PDF and slide it into my folder behind the robin stamped letter. Paper sings in E-flat when it knows it's home. Dinner is sturdy leftover roast, turned into sandwiches with mustard that refuses to be shy. I pack 2 for Cedar Glen's night shift because night is when kindness often clocked out in the old days. And we are updating the schedule on my way over. The number 7 bus sighs at the corner. 3 riders step down and sit on the curb to retie shoes, stretch shoulders, make small repairs. In my head, the bench is already there. A rectangle of permission. I whisper, soon, like a spell. On my stoop later, I practice small talk that isn't weaponized. You're doing great. You look steady. May I wash a pan? The sentences feel awkward in a mouth that handled mortgages and fevers and science projects. They'll do. I text Nora clipboards. She sends back a gif of someone saluting bureaucracy. then adds if it's absurd. Narrate quietly to me in your earbud on the walk home. I'll be your laugh track. Joke 3 bows. Bring licorice. I write. Red and black. We are ecumenical. Before bed, I tack a new index card by the pear magnet. Our kitchen's little constitution. If the visit becomes theater, then I will step out to admire the elm. If I am handed the baby, then I will memorize the scent and return her before my arms ask to keep. If I am ignored, then I will wave at the tiny ear that heard me anyway. I add 3 lines to the notebook because the day asked for them. Reactive devaluation loses power when you don't audition. Benches outlast clipboards. Nice from a difficult mouth is a seed, planted without sarcasm. Lights down, the fan writes its cursive, the watch keeps time without swagger. Somewhere, a sign-up sheet organizes affection into boxes. Here, I'm a whole paragraph unboxed. The bench crawls closer through City Hall. The socks keep feet from slipping. The baby sleeps with a knit cap's tiny shadow curved like a comma. Tomorrow I will walk the route to their door. Time the breathing at the elm. And remind my heart that leaving early can be a kind of staying. Saturday arrives like a page with faint lines welcoming, instructive. Not bossy. I dress in the soft sweater, the blue scarf Lillian chose, and shoes that apologize to no staircase. I slip a licorice rope into my pocket like a private treaty with Nora, and her voice waits in my earbud, silent. Lighthouse ready. The sign-up link said 2:30. I leave at 2:05 to breathe with the elm first. The air smells like warm sidewalks and the bakery's second batch. At the corner, the N7 exhales. 3 riders step down and check their shoulders as if they're carrying invisible groceries. I picture the future bench like a rectangle of kindness already casting shade. Hold your little sign, I tell the air, and the elm flickers agreement. Academic phrase of the day, ritualized gatekeeping the public argument that people turn access into ceremony slots. Scripts. Clipboard so power can feel compassionate while staying organized around itself. Sometimes that's wise. Sometimes it's theater with name tags. I arrive at 2:20 and count breaths under the elm until my ribs behave. At 2:27, I text here. Then walk up the path with palms visible. Mask on. Smile anyway. A woman with a clipboard opens the door, a friend of Tessa's. The one whose eyebrows always look like they've been briefed. Welcome, she says like a hotel that knows its occupancy rate. Shoes off, masks on. No gifts. 1 photo by the arch if you wish. I wish nothing photographic. I wish for steadiness. Thank you, I answer, and place my shoes on the rack like I'm donating them to a museum. Grant appears with the relief-shy grin of a man who slept 2 non-consecutive hours and is proud of both. Tessa follows, robe traded for a soft dress, hair forgiving, eyes competent. The living room has learned to be a nursery bottles like little planets. A burp cloth folded like armistice. The yellow blanket tucked over a bassinet edge like sunrise with manners. Joke 1 whispers. Tidy, I am very pleased with my blanket's diplomacy. There are 2 other guests, masked, murmuring the careful phrases new parents need like oxygen. You're doing great. I brought nothing but admiration. Your house smells like naps. The clipboard woman gestures toward a taped square on the floor. Family Unit 1, she says. I step into the square and think of hopscotch for grown-ups. Tessa lifts the baby with choreography that respects every hinge and offers a view without an ask. 5 minutes. The eyebrow friend adds. Kind and officious. We're practicing restraint. I collect restraints. I say gently, I will leave early, even. I look. It is a sacrament. The baby's cheeks are punctuation. Her mouth practices vowels. My hands stay at my sides like well-trained choir members. She's serious, I say. A good quality. The world will try jokes on her. She'll choose. Tessa smiles with a softness I've only met twice before. She already does, she says. Grant touches the bassinet in that hovering way men have when they're negotiating the distance between protective and helpful. She likes Amazing Grace at 68 beats per minute. He offers, as if I'm interviewing for the role of lullaby deputy, and the dryer. I nod like a person writing the recipe down. Routers and dryers, I say, are generation's saints. Elder wisdom reflection praise the choreography, not the scenery. Parents keep the stage from collapsing with good plank sleep shifts. Bottle timing, the heroic art of burping at 3 a.m., admire the structure and you bless the actors without asking for a larger role. A text from Ray pops onto my lock screen where only I can see it. Bench installation confirmed for Friday. I tuck the glow into my pocket like a warm coin and do not let it interrupt the scene. I memorize tiny ear like a shell, knit cap's shadow, the lemony edge of my blanket. The eyebrow friend taps her watch with the gentlest authoritarianism I've ever witnessed. 2 minutes, she sings. I nod. I'll step onto the porch at 1, I say. Tessa looks relieved by my self-exit. Thank you, she says, and it lands on the floor like a glass of water that didn't spill. Quick, quirky sidebar babies can smell their mother from 2 feet away. The amniotic fluid's chemistry primes their little minds to prefer her scent. It's why holding while masked still works. The perfume of belonging doesn't care about Instagram settings. At minute 4. Grant asks if I'd like to hold her for a second. He asks like a volunteer, requesting a clipboard. I set one condition with a smile: I will hand her back before my arms ask to keep. He nods. I sanitize. I sit. I offer my forearm like a shelf, and they settle her into my elbow's little crescent. Weight feather with opinions. Temperature the exact degree that makes soup honest. Scent milk. Laundry. New paper. I count 5 slow breaths. I hum 2 bars at human speed. I whisper her name to my ribs so I'll remember. Then I stand and hand her back as promised before the ache can draft a speech. Joke 2 curtsies behind my mask. I am early for leaving. It's my new party trick. The eyebrow friend aims an iPad politely at a balloon arch. 1 picture, she asks. For the private folder. Solemn faces only. I reply. We take a hush photo, 2 parents, 1 grandmother, 1 baby more interested in light than in us. No caption, no tag, a document, not a performance. I step onto the porch at 2:35 by my watch and text Nora a single licorice emoji. She replies with a lighthouse and an applause that stays in our pocket. From the sidewalk, I send Grant and Tessa. Thank you for the quiet. You look steady. Text soup and a time if stairs feel far. 3 dots, then a small red heart, then will do. On the walk home, I let my nervous system cool under the elm. A father with a stroller nods. I nod back. A small citizenship. The number 7 sighs and pulls away. The curb looks naked and ready. Friday, I tell it, wear your best shade. Back at the kitchen table, I write 2 notes, 1 to Tessa. You were capable in every direction, and 1 to Grant router reboot as needed. I tuck bird stamps on both. Because wings are my current brand. I call Cedar Glen Socks Day tomorrow, and could someone please measure the break room bulletin board? I have a flyer template titled, You Are Seen, that might want to live there. Jael says yes with a laugh that tidies a room. At 4, Mr. Caldwell leaves a voicemail, bench receipt processed, plaque ordered, poem memorandum attached to the trust. You are, in my professional opinion, a menace to disorganization. I like being that kind of menace. I text Nora bench Friday. She replies, I'm bringing a ribbon. We'll cut it with scissors the size of reality. Dinner is a calm sandwich and a tomato that didn't audition. I open my folder and add raised text to the bench project section. Then sketch a map for Friday number 7 bus stop. Elm at 11 o'clock, bench at 2 o'clock. Shade like a handshake. Joke 3 tries, a pun on o'clock and o'clocked. I fine it 5 cents and put the coins in the first envelope, labeled stamps. The doorbell rings at 6. Ida, in Victoria's slippers. Heard the baby was viewed, she says, eyes twinkling. Give me an adjective. Serious, I answer, and punctual. Ida approves. I prefer punctual babies, she says. The drama ones knock you off your calendar. We split a licorice rope and conspire about Friday's bench. She'll bring a thermos and a camera with no upload button. Evening opens its softer drawer. The group text chimes a photo from the day. The same hush shot I permitted. Posted in the family thread only. Captioned, Quiet Joy. Close family only. It doesn't say. Nobody asked for my permission to tag me. Nobody needs to. I reply with a single bird. Nora sends a bowl. Grant sends a heart. Tessa sends a tiny bench emoji, and I pretend not to see that my heart did a small cartwheel. Elder wisdom. Second serving when a hard mouth says nice or sends a bench emoji. Do not interrogate it until it hides. Plant it without sarcasm. Water it with errands. Let it grow or not. Your garden has other perennials. I set out tomorrow's socks and stamps, pack the first library card kits, and slip the licorice treaty into my coat. I tape a new card inside the cabinet where recipes live. If ceremony tries to make me small, then I will be exact, kind, brief. If kindness peeks out of a hard voice, then I will treat it like a seed. If the bench arrives Friday, then I will sit on it first and say nothing for 1 full minute. Quick, quirky, sidebar, blood pressure. Drops an average of a few points when people sit on benches facing trees, micro restoration, the studies call it. No lab has yet tested the effect of a plaque that grants public goodness. But I have a hypothesis and a thermos. Before bed, I write my 3 lines. Ritualized gatekeeping loses its teeth when you leave early on purpose. A 5-breath hold can feed you for days. Benches and babies both teach patience. You show up, you sit, you don't narrate the miracle to death. The fan writes its cursive. The watch keeps time without swagger. The house exhales its wood hymn. Somewhere, the clipboard has been filed. Here. The scarf hangs like a flag in easy weather. Friday will bring a rectangle of shade to bus height. Today brought 5 minutes that re-threaded a tiny seam. I turn off the lamp. Good night, little serious one, I tell the air. See you in a world with benches. The room agrees in the kind of silence that knows what it's approving. Friday arrives like a small parade that practiced being quiet. Nora lands at 10 with licorice, a measuring tape, and the face she saves for occasions that need both gentleness and screwdrivers. We walk to the corner with our thermos and our expectation set to civil. The number 7 sighs at the curb. And then the parks truck noses up behind it, yellow light winking as if to say, we brought the rectangle. Ray hops down in his sun hat and official clipboard, which somehow looks friendlier than other clipboards. 2 crew members lift the bench frame the way you lift a sleeping child, confident. Careful. They set the legs on chalk marks Ray drew earlier. A geometry with manners. Then begin to bolt the slats in, wood singing a soft syllable each time metal says. Here. I hand out paper cups of lemon tea and thank them for installing kindness with hardware. They grin. This is not the worst compliment their morning has met. Academic phrase of the day, ambient belonging. The public argument that small cues in a space tell your body whether it fits. Changing how you wait, talk, and help. A bench, shade, a plaque that blesses 10 minutes these whisper you belong, even if your day forgot to say it. Nora reads the plaque aloud like a line from a play she would have auditioned for in college for whoever needs 10 minutes of public goodness. She taps the metal. "You wrote a sentence that will outlast both of us," she says. "You menace." Joke 1 salutes the word. I have decided menace is my favorite compliment when the target is disorder. The first sitter is not us. A woman stepping off the bus lowers herself slowly, hands on her knees. Checks that her toddler's sneaker is stilled. Then leans back and closes her eyes the exact length of a hymn. She looks up, reads the plaque, and laughs in relief. "I thought I was stealing," she says to no one and everyone. Turns out I'm on the schedule. Nora and I pretend we are studying the elm because some gratitude prefers to be unobserved. Ray asks if I want to do a ribbon. I pull from my tote a length of blue cloth I cut from one of Lillian's old scarves, frayed at the end. Perfect as a blessing, and we tie it across the far arm so it won't trip anyone. The crew pretends not to notice my hands shaking. Nora simply covers mine with hers until they remember the choreography. "Scissors of reality," she whispers, passing me the small pair from the kitchen drawer. I snip. The ribbon sighs, and the bench sits there like it always meant to exist. Elder wisdom reflection. Invest in things that keep working when you are asleep. Benches. Book cards, good habits, bank accounts with instructions, the sort of love that shows up with stamps instead of speeches. Your future self is busy. Give her furniture, not errands. We take our minute of silence exactly as my cabinet card prescribed. No narration, no camera. I time it on my watch for the satisfaction of precision, but also because reverence likes bookends. At second 43, a bus exhales. At second 56, a skateboarder goes past in a friendly arc. At second 60, I inhale and think. There. Belonging added. Quick, quirky sidebar. Transit researchers say a shelter or bench can make the perceived wait feel almost half as long brains count comfort as minutes saved. It's not magic. It's math with elbows. Also, most city benches are 18 inches high and around 72 inches long. Long enough for 3 strangers who know how to share an armrest, or 1 teenager who thinks horizontally. I approve of both outcomes. Jael from Cedar Glen happens by on her break. Visor cocked like a crown, she reads the plaque, grins, and points to her shoes. "Non-skids in the wild," she says, wiggling a foot. I hand her a fresh pair from my tote because Tiny Practicalities believes in inventory. She sits for exactly 7 minutes, texts someone a heart, and heads back uphill lighter by the weight of 1 pause. By noon, the bench has earned crumbs, conversation, a quick diaper change disguised with a blanket, and 3 sighs that made the air warmer. Ray takes a victory photo on his personal phone, no tags, just a rectangle of shade with people on it. "Thank you for being a menace," he says. "Joke 2 tips its hat again. I will never tire of that." We walk home the long way, past the bakery that smells like prior good decisions. Nora measures nothing and everything with her tape, then pockets it, satisfied. "You changed the weight," she says. "That's almost always the larger kindness." At the house, the mail brings an envelope from Park's receipt. Map, a note from Ray plaque, installed. Font approved. Bench ID #7LM01. I slide it into the bench project tab. Then phone Cedar Glen to confirm tomorrow's socks drop. The nurse who answers says they've begun calling them e-socks. Pronounced like E's. I pretend I didn't hear that because humility likes to sleep in on Fridays. My phone buzzes. "Grandbaby slept 90 minutes. We are human." I send a bench emoji. He replies with a photo of the dryer and 3 musical notes. Progress sometimes looks like lint. Afternoon is slow chores, blue napkins ironed into good behavior. A pot of lentils that remember all the adjectives and choose none. Nora slices bread with the steadiness of a person who has made toast at midnight for roommates crying on the floor. We pack 2 first library card kits and label them in block letters. Club with no gate. She writes on a sticky. And I kiss her hair the way I did when she was 9. Around 4. Tessa texts. 3 words. Bench is lovely. There is no punctuation to argue with. I text back a bird. She sends a different bird. Joke 3 preens its feathers quietly and minds its business. We are planting nice without sarcasm. Academic phrase of the day is still breathing in the corner. Ambient belonging hums louder when the map of your day gains a spot where you don't have to perform. I watch an older man sit. Take out a small envelope, remove a letter folded like good laundry, read it twice, press it back, and grin. He is not performing. He is locating himself. The bench did that. The elm helped. We eat early sandwiches blessed by lentils, tomatoes that know when to be sweet. Nora insists we toast to the rectangle, which we do with water because our religion of tiny practicalities has modest sacraments. After. We carry a thermos and 2 cups back to the corner for the sunset shift. When benches sometimes attract melancholy. Not tonight. A teenager sprawls the long way, headphones whole worlds. He reads the plaque aloud, then gives us a thumbs up that belongs in a museum of terse approval. We accept it like a medal. On the way home, my phone pings with a calendar reminder I forgot I set "Write baby a line right now." I sit at the kitchen table and oblige. "Dear little serious one," I write. "Today we built a pause so you won't always have to stand up to cry. Love from the future you are walking toward. I seal it with a bird stamp and file it behind for when you are ready." Nora yawns and curls onto my couch with the blanket that has never auditioned for a nursery photo. We put on the radio at the quietest possible volume so the house can hum along without losing dignity. I wipe the counter with a cloth that knows my wrists. Straighten the folder that purrs like paper should, and set the thermos by the door for the morning. Before bed, I add 3 lines to the notebook, and the maple outside seems to read over my shoulder. A bench is a sentence that says, "Stay without trapping." Ambient belonging can be installed with bolts, shade, and a promise. We didn't make the city kinder. We taught one corner how. The fan writes its cursive. The watch keeps time without swagger. Somewhere in a living room filled with soft bottles and drier songs. A small person sleeps between parents who are learning choreography finer than any club can schedule. Here. A rectangle at bus height holds strangers the way a good story holds breath. And tomorrow's socks are already in a tote waiting to be distributed like patience. I turn off the lamp. "Good night, elm bench," I say to the air. And then, softer. "Good night, little serious one." The room approves with a wood sigh. And if the number 7 has feelings, it feels seen. Sunday opens like a room that remembers hymns even when no one's singing. Nora and I carry the thermos to the elm and share the bench with a woman grading papers in purple pen. I've started recognizing regular stroller dad who thanks shade under his breath. Teenager who wears the bench like a horizon. Nurse whose non-skids wink like confetti. The plaque does its small sermon without supervision. At noon. I check my folder one last time, bench project tab tidy. Trust papers asleep in their sleeve. Bird stamps visibly abundant and set it on the sideboard like a cat that knows where the sun lands. The phone buzzes a photo from Grant. Nothing fancy, just a close-up of the baby's hand wrapped around his thumb. Caption. We slept. Sort of. I send back ritual nap rights. No emojis. We are learning brevity with mercy. Academic phrase of the day, status quo bias. The public argument that people prefer things to stay as they are. Even when as they are is a room with a draft. It explains how a family gets stuck in a script because the stagehands are tired. It also explains why benches stay benches. They ask nothing new of anyone except to sit. After lunch. I visit Cedar Glen with socks and stamps like sacraments. Jael posts my little flyer on the break room board you are seen and pretends not to wipe her eye. We've started calling slow moments bench minutes, she says, even when we're on a plastic chair. I leave 3 first library card kits with the social worker. Babies visit here, too. And some come with a parent who could use a bus token that doubles as a blessing. Joke 1 leans on the cart. Our faith accepts transfers. On the way home, I pass the elm. 2 teens sit at opposite ends, headphones, heads down, sharing a silence that would have taken me a decade to learn at their age. The plaque catches the light like a wink. I take no picture. Not everything benefits from us holding it still. Elder wisdom reflection. When a part of your life becomes gentler, don't rush to monetize it with meaning. Let the softness work without invoices. The world sends enough bills. Evening promises soup with Nora and Ida. And perhaps a porch hello from Ray if his route wanders this way. I slice onions chilled so they sigh. And Nora sets the table with blue napkins that iron themselves now out of respect. We talk about tiny government's pantries, park benches, clinic desks where kindness votes count double. We do not discuss the club, its fonts, or its concentric circles. Boredom is my chosen boycott. Just after 6, the family thread pings, a short video baby in my yellow blanket, making that ancient newborn moue that says, I invented the letter O, Tessa has written. Simply, quiet joy. Part 2. Small seed became small sprout. I do not overwater it. I reply with a bird and a book emoji. Nora adds a bowl. Grant sends a heart. Ida, who should not know how to use the thread and yet obviously does, adds a bench. Joke 2 bows toward the inevitable. We've made emojis our second language. Quick, quirky sidebar, perforated stamp edges exist because of a 19th century invention by a man named Henry Archer. Before that, postal clerks cut stamps apart with scissors painfully slow. Perforation sped up kindness by making it easier to separate and send. I like to think Archer was impatient for love to travel faster. After soup, I pull out the trust letter and, for the last time in pencil, add a quiet stanza for later. If you never read this because life gave you other rooms, that is allowed. I wrote it so that whether or not we share holidays, we share a bench-shaped idea, public goodness belongs to you. I sign it with the initial I have earned by living this long E. At 8. Grant calls. His voice has steadied into a register I haven't heard in years, the one he used to use when showing me a Lego thing that wouldn't collapse. Thank you for not making it about you, he says, haltingly. The porch, the timing, the bench. I let the silence be furniture. Being about the baby suits me, I say. He exhales. Tessa says your blanket is the only one that doesn't try to be the star. I smile into the receiver. Humility can be engineered in knit. Tell her I design for naps, I say. He laughs. Truly, router reboot still in rotation, he adds. Also, Amazing Grace at 68 BPM. Human tempo, I say. Keep your metronome kind. Nora leaves on the red eye. We hug like competent people who will do this again soon. Next project, she asks. Mischief in her suitcase. Bus stop trash can with a lid, I say. Upgrade dignity for banana peels. We laugh because governance is fun when no one's yelling. Before bed, I walk to the elm bench one last time. The number 7 glides in, exhales, gathers, leaves. 2 people sit. Not together. Not alone. A breeze turns the plaque into a reading. I take my minute. As promised on the cabinet card, no narration. No camera. Inventory only. Gratitude. Check. Ordinary. Check. A city corner elevated by wood and a sentence. Check. Back home. I lay the blue scarf on the chair like a flag on calm water. I put the folder away. I set one stamp on the counter for tomorrow and one library kit near the door. I write 3 last lines in this notebook because, well, stories end. Paperwork and soup continue. Status quo bias yields to habits that are kinder than inertia. My legacy is not a guest list. It's a bench. Love, when it grows up, brings stamps. Joke 3 pads through with slippers. Tomorrow I'll bake a small lemon cake and deliver halves to 2 porches, I tell the maple. We are ecumenical about frosting. The tree pretends sternness, then rustles like applause. I turn off the lamp. The fan writes its cursive. The watch keeps time without swagger. Somewhere. A dryer hums, and a tiny ear decides the world has enough sound tonight, here. My house, this roomy witness, rests with me. As we keep our small republic running benches. Socks, stamps, soup, birds, and the fine art of leaving early on purpose. We began at a long table with 8 polite plates and no footsteps. A 78th birthday, where silence arrived dressed as policy. A caption close family only reframed a life, instead of begging for a bigger chair. Our narrator built a new room. She called her lawyer, rewrote her will in a voice politely fierce, and created a trust for a child she might hold only on a porch distributions at 18 and 25. No parental reimbursements. Gifts to the library and to CNAs who lift more than weight. She invented a religion of tiny practicality socks, stamps, soup and a bench project that planted ambient belonging at bus height for whoever needs 10 minutes of public goodness. We watched reactive devaluation lose its teeth when she stopped auditioning. Ritualized gatekeeping softened under exact, brief kindness. A 5-minute porch visit became a stitch. A hush photo stayed unposted. Nice from a hard mouth was planted without sarcasm. The grandson's father practiced router reboots and lullabies at human tempo. Kin-keeping shifted from private ache to public infrastructure. Legal letters landed with quiet law. Clipboards organized slots. Benches outlasted them. The house held soup and lists. Cedar Glen learned bench minutes. The pantry met stamps. The number 7 bus sighed and felt seen. Names stayed changed. Boundaries stayed warm. The trust letter waited behind a robin stamp for a day when Emma, or whatever name, might read. Our narrator's elder wisdom ripened into a habit: Guyve crisis, a chair and water, keep cooking. She funded shade, folded blue napkins into decisions, and chose boring procedures that pay long dividends. By the end, keys didn't change, people did. Close widened into benches and birds. Legacy stopped spelling itself with guest lists. Love grew up and brought stamps. In a world that narrates too loudly. She practiced leaving early on purpose and discovered that peace is repetitive, not silent.